Okay, good morning, everyone. We are on DAF Chaf Aleph. We'll start on Chaf Amud Beis. We were talking about, yesterday we established that it came out at the end of the day, at least according to Rebbe, that dam is the only thing that is excluded from melach, from salt. Everything else needs to be salted, according to Rebbe, even eitzim. So now the Gemara is going to ask a very interesting question. Ve'el akra, 2 lines on the bottom of Chaf Amud Beis. Ve'el akra, the kra that we have, V'chol korban minchascha b'melach timlach ve'ela kra l'ma'utei mai l'ma'utei dam me'al minchascha nafka. If you remember from yesterday, we excluded dam from the pasuk of me'al minchascha v'lo me'al damcha, that you can discontinue salt only from the dam, not from the mincha. That means only the dam doesn't need salt. We already know that. So if we already know that dam is excluded, then what's this korban minchascha, which is comparing it to minchas, if it excludes everything but dam, if every other thing needs melach except for dam, you have 2 psukim that are excluding dam. Says the Gemara, you're right, we're going to include one other thing in melach. Apik eitzim ve'ayil nesachim. Because again, according to everybody else, you don't have a problem. Because according to everybody else, what do you say? According to Rebbe, what comes out, so eitzim are salted also. Right? According to everybody else, you would say that eitzim are not salted. If eitzim are not salted, then you have one pasuk that's excluding dam and one pasuk that's excluding eitzim. It's not a problem, right? But if you have only dam excluded and eitzim need to be salted as well, so now you have 2 psukim to exclude 2 different things, but you only have one thing that's being excluded. Says the Gemara, we're going to exclude something else. So he's going to exclude something else. What's that? He's going to exclude the nesachim. Then when you have wine libations that come, so they're not going to need melach. So now you'll have dam that doesn't need melach, and the wine libations will not have to be salted. Tanya, aval hayayin v'hadam v'ha'etzim v'aktoras ein te'un in melach. There's actually a brayso that says even more than nesachim. There's other things that don't need to have melach. Yayin, this is according to opinion. Yayin, dam, eitzim, ketores, don't need money. Who is that? Rebbe. If it's Rebbe, kasha eitzim. If it's Rebbe, it can't be that eitzim don't need melach. Rebbe just said that eitzim need melach. And Rabbanan, if it's the Rabbanan, kasha ketores, because they said that ketores does need melach, as does eitzim. So says the Gemara, eitzim doesn't, but ketores does. Haitanu, so this is a third opinion. So again, according to one opinion, the thing that you're excluding is eitzim and dam. That was our first opinion, right? That was the Rabbanan. Eitzim and dam is being excluded. Everything else needs melach. Then you had Rebbe who comes along and says, no, not eitzim and dam, just dam is excluded. And now he's adding nesachim. So it comes out you have eitzim and dam being excluded, and now you have nesachim and dam being excluded. And now the third opinion is saying not only is yayin being excluded, nesachim, not only is dam being excluded, not only is eitzim being excluded, Torres is being excluded as well. That's clearly not Rebbe, and it's clearly not the Rabbanan. Therefore, what? Haitanahu detanya. This is another Tanya that says what? Rabbi Shmuel ben Osh Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer. If you remember yesterday, we had klal upratu klal. Korban is klal, minchascha is prat, and then we had that kol korbanecha, that on all your korbanos you need to have melach. So you had klal upratu klal. And therefore, we said anything that's similar to mincha, as opposed to specifically only mincha. Ma'aprat, so what's similar to mincha? Ma'aprat miforash davar shemakabel tumma ve'ola le'ishim v'yeshno mizbeach hachitzon. Af kol davar makabel tumma ve'ola le'ishim v'yeshno mizbeach hachitzon. So according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan, we make a different libud. We're not necessarily learning, like we learned yesterday, that it's a mincha, anything comparable to a mincha that requires eitzim to come with it. Or anything comparable to a mincha that's a matir. What do we say? We say that anything that's comparable to the mincha in these 3 senses, that it's a davar makabel tumma, like a mincha is, because it's food, it gets burnt on the fire, and it gets put on the mizbeach hachitzon. What's that? What's a similar thing? Yatsu eitzim, that excludes eitzim, that includes most korbanos, but it excludes eitzim, she'ein makabel tumma, that are not makabel tumma. Eitzim in their raw sense are not makabel tumma. Yatsu dam v'yayin she'ein olam be'ishin. Dam and yayin are not poured on the eish, they're poured on the mizbeach. Yatsu ketores she'ein al mizbeach hachitzon. And it excludes ketores that's not on the mizbeach hachitzon. So according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Osh Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, you're excluding even more things from the mitzvah of melicha. So therefore, again, you have that two, and then numerous ones that are excluded. Everybody agrees that dam is excluded. Then some say that eitzim are also excluded. Some say that nesachim are going to be excluded. And then there's opinion that says yayin, dam, eitzim, and ketores are all excluded from salt. Says the Gemara, Elataima demate krala dam. So now that you've established why you need, again, according to everybody, there's at least two things excluded. Therefore, you have at least two psukim. You have two psukim which exclude the different things. But now that you're telling me that I excluded dam from the pasuk, so you're telling me the reason that dam doesn't need melach is because it was excluded from the pasuk. Halav hachi havamina dam li by melach. Like we said yesterday, really dam should need, because dam is a matir. And we said either or. So if dam's a matir, really it should need melach, but we excluded it by saying dam minchascha v'lo korban minchascha v'lo dam, only minchascha and not dam. So really dam should need melach, but it was excluded. But that implies kevan demalche nafik le mitoras dam. What's interesting is that you are saying that dam is excluded because there's a pasuk. The only reason dam is excluded is because there's a pasuk. Otherwise, dam would need melach because, as we said yesterday, it's a matir. The Gemara says, but I don't understand. What would happen if you salted dam? What would happen to the dam? It would be not salt water, it would be salt blood. What's the problem with salt blood? Says the Gemara, it's no longer blood. Kevan demalchi nafik le mitoras dam. The Amar Zeiri, Amar Rabbi Chanina, dam shebishlu eino over alav. You can't eat dam in general. If you eat dam, so you're over alav and you're chayiv kares. Says the Gemara, if you cook blood, then you eat it, you have issues. But if you cook blood and you eat it, eino over alav. You're not chayiv kares. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Zeiri, dam shemalchu eino over alav. Dam shemalchu, as Rashi says, dam shebishlu, up on the right. Bein dechulin, bein dekatshim va'achlu, eino over alav. Dehalochi v'torah ela hadam haroi lekapara. Important Rashi. That the Torah only was mechayiv you for dam. This sounds similar to what? Sounds similar to yayin. Right? We know yayin mevushal. Not exactly the same, but it knows that it has to be roy to be burned. That's why eino mevushal is a problem, and yayin mevushal is not a problem for a non-Jew to touch. Again, it's not exactly the same thing, but yayin mevushal is not a yayin mevushal. One of the reasons that it's not a problem is because it can't be poured on the mizbeach. Eino mevushal can be poured on the mizbeach. It's a similar idea, not the same. But we're saying that dam has to be roy lekapara. If dam is roy lekapara, if dam is cooked, so it's no longer roy lekapara. What does that have to do with salting? We know that in Hilchos Kashrus we have an idea of meliach hareyu kiroseach. That when you salt something, it's like you're cooking it, and therefore lemaisa, since cooking it is going to make it no longer fit for the mizbeach, so too is salting, and therefore anything that's not fit for the mizbeach, eino over alav. You're not going to be chayiv. It has to be fit for the mizbeach. So it's a kula and a chumrah, right?
I don't get it. If you're,
you don't get, yeah.
If we learn that you do have to salt blood, then then it is road at mizbeach.
We're saying, but again, the bottom line is that you don't salt blood. The given is that you don't salt blood. The question is, that given implies that really you should have salted blood, right? The bottom line is that you don't salt blood. But we said, really you should have salted blood. The reason you don't salt blood is because the pasuk comes along and excludes blood from being salted. But the Gemara says that had it not been for the pasuk, you would have salted blood. The Gemara's question is, I don't understand, what's the havamina that you would have salted blood? Had you salted the blood before the zrika, which is what you would be doing, then you'd in essence be zorek non-blood on the mizbeach. That's the Gemara's question. They want to know before you excluded dam.
But according to this havamina, before you excluded dam,
right?
So salted blood would be something.
According to the havamina, we would maybe salt dam, but the Gemara before it says that it would be good is saying, how could you even consider the fact that it would be good? L'maisa, it's not dam. And you need dam in order to go. So the question, should we salt blood or not? And the Gemara is saying, what are you even asking the question? It's a ridiculous question.
It's a dumb
question. You would salt it, it's a dumb question, thank you. If you would salt blood, then Lamaise wouldn't be blood, and then there wouldn't even be a question. You wouldn't be able to throw it on the Mizbeach. So the Gemara over here says that, therefore what? Therefore again, since it can't be used on the Mizbeach, you can be over alav. If you can use it on the Mizbeach, then if you can use it on the Mizbeach, then you're going to be over alav. If you can't use it on the Mizbeach, so since you cannot use it on the Mizbeach when it's salted, which is cooked, therefore ain't no over alav because it's not fit for the Mizbeach. Therefore, if you eat it, you're not going to be over alav. Rabbi Yehuda Didei Amar, and Rabbi Yehuda furthermore says, just parenthetically, Evarim shetzalan ve'elan ein b'hem mishum l'reach nichoach. You have to have reach nichoach. When you bring a korban, it needs to be reach nichoach. If you pre-cook it, then it's not a reach nichoach. Then it's not considered to be a pleasant smell. So says the Gemara, what's the havamina? So mao desema mishtaba mashu lemitzvah me'alma kamashman. What's the havamina? There was never a havamina, says the Gemara, that you would salt the dam a lot, because had you done that, it wouldn't be dam. There was a havamina that you should put a tiny bit of salt, which wouldn't be enough to consider it to be roteach, which would not be enough to consider it to be mevashel. Put a little bit of salt to be yotzei the mitzvah, just like you have to salt everything else. Put a little bit of salt on the dam. Therefore, lamaisa, it'll still be called dam. Therefore, you could still do zrika. Says in Gemara, kamash malan, that the pasuk comes to exclude that you shouldn't even put a little bit of salt on the dam. Says in Gemara, gufa. Amar Zeiri Amar Bechanina. Dam Shabishlu Eino over alav. Like we said, if it's cooked, then you're not over alav because it's not royal mizbech. Yasser Rava Kamar Lala Hashmaita. So Rava repeated this shmaita of Rabbi Chanina. Eisri Abai. Abai asked the following question because there's another brayso that seems to say otherwise. Hikva es adam va'achlo. If you harden the blood through heat, through cooking, so I guess if you cook blood, it becomes hard. O shehimcha es achelev v'gamo, or you liquefy the fat and then you swallow it, you are chayiv. So what do you see? You see over here that if you cook blood, you're chayiv. What's the pshat? We just said if you cook blood, you're not chayiv because it's not royal mizbeach. Lo kasha. Says in Gemara, kan shehikva ba'or. Kan shehikva b'chama. There's going to be a little discussion. Seemingly we're going to reject this. But the havamina is that when you cook something in or, and again it comes up Hilchos Shabbos as well, when you cook something with the sun, that's not real cooking. Because you'll heat it up a little bit. You're not going to change, you would know better than I would, you're not going to change the essential component and makeup of the blood. Therefore, when it cools down, quote unquote, and it uncongeals, it's back to what it was originally, and therefore it's royal mizbeach. If you cook dam, and you actually go ahead and cook it and mevashel it, you change the components of the dam. Therefore, once you do that, it's no longer fit for the mizbeach. Even if it then uncongeals or unbecomes hard and it's no longer hard and you can throw it on the mizbeach, it's going to be asr l'mizbeach and therefore eino over alav. Be'or lo hadar, b'chama hadar. When you do it in the sun, it will not return. It will not return. Bechama hadar. When you do it, with fire, it will not return to being regular blood. Bechama, it'll just harden, then it'll turn back to what it originally was. Therefore, it's still fit for the mizbeach. If it's still fit for the mizbeach, and you eat it, it's going to be over alav. Says the Gemara, Bechama nami lema hoel ve'idche yidchi. But I understand. Let's say it does go back to its original. But lamaisa, right now, when it's hardened, it's not fit for the mizbeach. You can't throw dam that's hardened on the mizbeach. Says Gemara, "Da'abayimine Rebbe mani me Rabbi Yochanan dam shekarash." If it's hard, ve'achlu mahu, and you eat it, what? Amarle hoel v'nidcha yidcha. Once it became bad, even though now it uncongeals, when it was congealed, it was bad because you couldn't throw it. Ishtaki was quiet. Amarle, so Abaye said no. I have another answer. And again, the Rishonim talk about, are we throwing out? So for our purposes, we're going to throw out the whole or versus chama. But there are opinions that say we're working within or versus chama, and we're still going to keep it because lamaisa, you still, whatever. We're going to throw it out just for now, but there definitely is a lima to keep learning within. But to make it simple, let's throw out the or versus chama. We can't make that connection because even if you say that one of them was done versus chama, you should say lamaisa, when it was bad, and it should never go back to being good. Kevan de idchi, once it was pushed off, idchi should be pushed off forever. So what's the nafkamina? Why in Zeiri's case, if you eat the dam, you're not over, i.e. it's not fit for the mizbeach, and why in the second case, if you eat the dam, you are over, because it is fit for the mizbeach? Says the Gemara, we'll give you another difference. One difference is, dilma vadai kan bechatos hachitzonios, kan bechatos hapnimios. The chatos hachitzonios, you can go ahead and what? You can go ahead and you can put the congealed blood on it. Why? What do you have to do on the chatos hachitzonios? You don't have to throw it. Just have to place the blood on top of the mizbeach. Therefore, since even when it's congealed, you can place the blood, for the chatos hachitzonios, even if it's congealed, it's royal mizbeach. If it's royal mizbeach, then if you eat it, you're going to be over. However, kan bechatos hapnimios, when Zeiri says that if you eat it, you're not over alav, that's by congealed blood of a chatas pnimios, which cannot be sprinkled, as we'll see in a second, because it's hard. It can't be sprinkled on the mizbeach. If it can't be sprinkled on the mizbeach, it's not royal mizbeach. If it's not royal mizbeach, even though it looks exactly like the one that's a chatas chitzonios, lamaisa, that one is going to be eino over alav. You still can't eat it lechatchila, but if you eat it, you will not be over alav. Amar, so Rava says, Ad kirasan milsa. You remind me to the words, the Amar of Chista. Dam shecharash bichautos, says in Besoros Hashatz, hachitzonios, va'achlu chayav. Why? This is going on what we just said. What does it say by chatas chitzonios? V'lakach v'nasan. You just have to take it and put it on Rachmana. V'hai bar lekicho nesinahu. Even if it's congealed, it could still be taken and put on the mizbeach. Therefore, since it could still be taken and put on the mizbeach, the chatas chitzonios, it still fits into royal mizbeach. If it fits into royal mizbeach and you eat it, you're going to be over alav. However, bechatos apnimios, again, it becomes a kula is the chumrah is the kula. The fact that it's a chumrah that you can't bring it on the mizbeach is going to be the kula if you eat it. Bechatos apnimios achlu pater. Why? V'taval v'hiza. It's not just v'lakach v'nasan. You have to dip and you have to throw it. You can't throw it if it's hard. Amar Rachmana v'hai lav bar tevila v'hazahu. So that's how it comes out. If the chatas chitzonios, since it could still be placed on the mizbeach, if you eat it, you're over alav. But the chatas pnimios, since it cannot be put that way on the mizbeach, if you eat it, you're not over alav. For Rava Didei Amar, Rava says very interestingly, he adds, afilu bechatos apnimios v'achlu chayiv hoelu connect the roy bechatos chitzonios. At the end of the day, if I have two congealed bloods in front of me, I might confuse which one is a chatas chitzonios and which one is a chatas pnimios. Not that I'm supposed to eat the blood in the first place, but the point is that since there is one that is not fit, and since there is one that is fit, the chatas chitzonios, therefore what? Since that one is fit and therefore that one is usher to eat, we're going to be gozer, the blood of the chatas pnimios, which it itself is not usher, it's usher to eat, but it itself is not over alav, because again, it's not fit in the mizbeach, but we're going to make a gzeira on the blood of the chatas pnimios, als the blood of the chatas chitzonios, which is usher and is over alav, and therefore, lamaisa, you'll be over alav, even if you eat the blood of the chatas chitzonios. Says the chatas pnimios. Amar Rav Papa. And Rav Papa is going to add that not only are we going to be gozer the chatas pnimios als the chatas chitzonios, we're going to be gozer non-kosher blood, which doesn't have this isser als kosher blood, because kosher blood is fit lemizbeach, non-kosher blood is not. But since again, seemingly they look the same, at the end of the day, we're going to say that you're over alav even if you eat the congealed non-kosher blood, the dam of a chamor. Amar Papa hilkach dam chamor shekarash va'achlu chayav. You're going to be chayav. Says the Gemara, how will connect the roy bechatos hachitzonios? Avabi Rashi says she'ein roy lekorban v'iklamim delo chayv Torah kares el adam roy lekorban el afilu chamor de'ein korban bitmein afilu hachi chayav. Amar of Gidol Amar b'zeiri. Parenthetically, dam bein lach bein yavish chotzeis. If you have blood on your body, whether it's wet or dry, it's chatzitza by the mikvah. Meis v'hadam v'hadiyo, the ink, v'hadvash, the honey, v'hachalav, the milk. Yeveshin chotzitzin, lachin ein chotzitzin. You see that it's only going to be a chatzitza if it's hard. If it's lachin, it's not going to be. You just told me that lachin is also a chatzitza. Lo kashya, had disarech, had lo sarech. No, when is it a chatzitza? It's a chatzitza when it's sticky. When it's not sticky, it's not going to be a chatzitza. When it's just sort of, when it's wet. Obviously, if it's solid, it's always going to be a chatzitza. But if it's wet and it starts to basically go off on its own, if it starts to go down on its own, then it's not going to be a chatzitza. But if it's sticky and stays on the body, it'll be a chatzitza. If you remember yesterday, we said korban menachoscha b'melach timlach, and we spoke about repeating psukim. We said this is a repetition, but the Gemara itself never dealt with why does it have a repetition at the end of that pasuk, right? Whatever we use that pasuk for, korban menachoscha klal uprat, b'melach timlach. What do you have to double? What do you have to say it? Korban menachoscha, put melach on the korban menachoscha. What's this melach timlach? Says the Gemara, timlach l'mayasa. What do you need both psukim? What do you need both words? You're going to learn two words. B'melach yachol tivoneu. If it was melach, then you would think one thing. Tivoneu we'll explain in a second. Talmud lomar timlach. You have to do not only melach but timlach. We'll explain what that means. And the other way, eat timlach. If it just said it has to be salted, yachol b'mei melach. You might think like at the Pesach Seder, just take some of the stuff, take some of the salt water, and pour it onto the korban. Talmud lomar b'melach. It needs to be real salt. So you learn two things. The first thing we'll see in a second. The other thing you learn from Bamelach Timlach, from the repetition, is that you have to use real salt, and you can't just use salt water when you need to salt these korbanos. V'lo tashbis melach, that melach cannot be discontinued, right? This pasuk reads, V'chol chorban minchascha b'melach timlach. So you want to know why it repeats itself. Then it says, V'lo tashbis melach bris Elohecha me'al minchascha, which we said it should not rest. You should not discontinue the dam from the korbanos. We're going to want to know why it uses the word tashbis, to rest. Akol korbanacha takriv melach. That's the full pasuk. So Gemara says, why does he use the word resting for discontinue over here by melach? V'lo tashbis melach. What is it teaching us? Have melach she'ena shovetes. Bring melach that never rests, which Rashi says, as we'll see, is my melach sidomis, ve'ezo zo melach sidomis, says the Gemara, which is from the sea. And you can get that any time of the year. You can get that in all four seasons. You can get it from the sea. Therefore, it's also, I mean, it happens to say that it's fine grained, but the point is, no, this is fine grained. The other one is coarse. The melach stomach is fine grained. So at the end of the day, you end up, at the end of the day, it says that it has to be tishbo, so it has to be something that you can get at any time. You can find at any time. That's mitzuya bekayit uvechoref. That's what it means, that it rests. It rests all the time. If not, and you can't find the melach stomis for whatever reason, you can't get it from the sea, How do you know you can use this melech askunis, which happens to be coarse grained, but at the end of the day, it's from a mine? How do you know you can use the one that's from a mine, even though you can't get salt from a mine all year long? I guess based on the weather conditions, etc. So how do you know you can even use the one that's not always tishbos, that's not always found? Talmud lomar takriv kol shehu. That means lechatchila you use the one that shvita, that's why it says tishbos, v'lo tashbes. Lechatchila you use melach stomis, which can be found the entire year. B'diavad, if you can't find it, you can use the melach that comes from the mine. But when it says takriv, it means takriv kol shehu. Again, v'lo tashbes mel melach zecha kol menecha takriv melach. So takriv kolshu, any type of salt. Then the Gemara says, what kind of salt does takriv also include? Takriv mikol makom, even salt from chutz la'aretz. Takriv afilu b'Shabbos, takriv afilu b'tumah. That also includes even on Shabbos and even b'tumah. What are you talking about? Obviously, we're talking about what? We're talking about a korban sibor. What would you have thought? We know you could bring a korban sibor on Shabbos, and we know that you could bring a korban sibor b'tumah. But you might have not known that what? You might not have known that you can salt a korban sibor on Shabbos. That you can salt a korban sibor when the kohen is tamei. Takriv mikol makom says not only can it be the salt from the mines, not only can it be salt from chutz haaretz, it could be salted even on Shabbos, and it could be salted even by a kohen who is tamei. Says in Gemara, what's this first part that we said? My tivonehu. We said yachol tivonehu talmud lomar timlach. What would you have thought? So the first thing we learned is that you can't use salt water. What's the other thing that we learned from the beginning of the pasuk? Melach timlach. So my tivonehu amar rabba barula hachi kamar yachol yizbonenu kiteven betit. You might think that you have to place the teven. You have to place it like teven betit. Yizbonenu. It needs to be like teven. When you make bricks, or when they used to make bricks, they would place the straw, and they would knead a lot of straw into clay in order to make bricks. So you might think you have to put on as much straw. You put on a lot of straw into clay, that's how much melach you have to put on, a tremendous amount of salt. Says in Gemara, no, timlach, it just has to be timlach, it just has to be an average amount of salt. Then if that was the case, in using the wrong word, it shouldn't be tivoneu, it should have been yisbonenu. Says in Gemara, rather, what would you have thought? Similarly, he agrees that the idea is the same, that you would have thought you have to put on a tremendous amount of salt. We would have thought that you do it not like teven, but like a binyan. When you're making a binyan, you put salt, row after row of salt, in order to make something. Says the Gemara, so you might have thought you have to put on a tremendous amount. Timlach, that you only have to put on an average amount. Says the Gemara, Rava, yeah, I'm going to get you back. Then it also doesn't say the right word. It said yivanenu, that you're building it. Elamarava yachol tivunehu. You might have thought that tivunehu. What is tivunehu? My tivunehu. Amar Rashi yachol yitain bo tam kibina tam elamar timlach. So this is interesting. Now it goes the other way. You would have thought not that you have to put on a tremendous amount of salt. You would have thought you have to only put on a little bit of salt. Why? Tivonehu. What does that mean? Tivunehu. Like bina. You only need a little bit of bina in order to have a lot of understanding. A little bit of understanding in the body works for the entire body. A small amount of bina influences a person a lot. It's nice to have a lot of bina, but even a small amount of bina will influence a person a lot. Therefore what? That's why the women were given bina yisera. That's why they're okay. But at the end of the day, you might have thought that only a tiny amount of salt is needed. Talmud lomar timlach, you need to have an average amount. So again, the bottom line is, according to all three possibilities, you need an average amount of salt. The first possibility you might have thought you need a tremendous amount of salt, like teven, like building. The third possibility is that you might have thought you need a very little amount of salt, like bina. Talmud lomar, for all three of them, is you need an average amount of salt. So the repetition is A, you need an average amount of salt, not too much, not too little. And the second thing is that you can't use salt water, you have to use actual salt. Says in Gemara, Kate Saduosa, so Lamaisa, how do you use salt now that you're salting an average amount? Mevi ha'ever, v'nosin alav melach, v'chozer v'hocha, v'nosin alav melach u'ma'aleir. This is again salting it for bringing it on the mizbeach. What do? You salt one side, you flip it over, you salt the other side. Amar Abaye v'chein l'kederin. Abaye says you should know that when you're salting, in order to go ahead and use it to eat, that's how you salt it as well. So that's how you salt. Tana Rabbanan. Now we have a question. What happens when you salt something? What happens to the leftover salt? So melach al gabe ha'ever ma'alibo. If you have melach that's on top of the aver, you actually use the salt to salt the limb. Now you take salt off of the limb. That's me'ilah if you use it for your own hana because you're using kodesh. However, shal gabe ha'keves. We're going to see that they salted it in really three places, but it only brings two places here. Where do you actually salt the animal? You salt the animal even in the lishkas hamelach, which we'll see, or you salt it on the ramp that's going up to the Mizbeach, or you salt it on the Mizbeach itself. So if you take it off of the aver that you salted, that's Me'ilah. But let's say you take off the leftovers that fell on the floor by the keves, on the keves itself, or fell on the floor of the Mizbeach. Kevesh, I'm sorry. Yes. If you take it off that fell on the kevesh, not on the keves. If you take it off that fell on the kevesh, on the floor, or you took it off from the floor of the Mizbeach, see, nobody pays attention in the 6 o'clock daf, obviously. So you go ahead, then what happens? Then you're not moel, because that seems to be the leftovers. So if you take it off of the animal itself, that's me'ilah. If you take it off the leftovers on the floor, that's not going to be me'ilah. Remember of Masna Mikra, what's the pasuk? V'kraftem lifnei Hashem v'shlichu hakonim aleihem melach v'helu osam olal Hashem. You put the melach on, and then it says you bring them. What do you mean them? You're bringing the aver. You're bringing the aver with the salt. Both of them are considered to be as the ola. Therefore, they're both considered to be kodesh. And therefore, if you take the salt off of the ola, it's considered to be, or the salt off of the korban, it's going to be me'ilah. But that's only, again, if it's on the actual aver. Zok the Gemara, Tnan Hasam. Ala melach v'ala eitzim sheyuakon nimnei osin behen. The Mishnah over there in Mesechet Shkalim says that Beis Din made a gzeira on 7 things, and 2 of them is about salt, and about eitzim, that the kohanim can get hana from salt and from eitzim. So we're going to talk about this right now. Amar Shmuel, lo shanu. Now, what kind of hana? Well, what are the kohanim using salt for? So the Gemara is going to say the kohanim are using salt for 3 things. Kohanim are using salt, first of all, to salt their karbanos before they burn them. They're using salt to salt the oros, to salt the hides, in order to, which they're ultimately going to be able to keep. And then they're using salt when they actually get the korbanos from Bnei Yisrael, when they get the meat that they're allowed to eat, the shok and the chazeh, they're using salt in order to make the food taste good. So they're salting it twice, once in order to bring it on the Mizbeach, once in order to be able to make the or fit for them to be able to have and use, and once while they're eating the kachim. And really the 4th time, as we'll see, is they might use it for their non-kachim food as well. They might like it with their regular, with their French fries. Okay?
Well, they can't eat the meat if there's blood anyway. That's,
what?
Get the blood out.
Well, this is a separate thing. I'm saying the blood is coming out. Let's assume that they salted for the blood, but now they want to salt it. Now they just like their food with salt. So they want to eat the kachim with salt. But yeah, they have to salt it before they put it on the mizbeach. They have to salt the or to get all the blood out. They have to salt, obviously, the meat to get the blood out, but then they want to salt it while they're eating dinner. They want to salt the meat that they got from Bnei Yisrael, and they want to salt the French fries, the table salt that they are eating with the meat that they got from Bnei Yisrael, their own French fries. That's chulin. So there's 4 different things. So it says the Gemara, Lo shanu ela korbanam. The fact that they can get hana is for their korbanam, which would seemingly mean what at this point, we'll see. Aval achila lo. So what does it mean that they can use the salt? And again, what salt are we talking about? They're allowed to use salt at home. They can go to Sobeys and buy salt. We're talking about using the salt that belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, the salt of the tzibor. So now, what does it mean that they can use it for their korbanam and not for achila? korbanam limloach korbanam. So the first havamina is that they can use it to salt their korbanos, which are going to be burnt on the mizbeach, but they cannot use it la'achila. La'achila, achilas kachim. Now when they get from Bnei Yisrael, the korban, they're not allowed to use the salt to eat their korbanos that they got from Bnei Yisrael. Hashalim loach ores kachim yavinan, la'achilas kachim lo yavinan. The Gemara says, as we'll see in a second, I don't understand. But we know for sure, as we're about to see in the Brisa, that they're allowed to use salt to salt the hides in order to then take them and use them at home for leather. So you're going to tell me that they're allowed to use salt that belongs to the tzibor for the hides, but they're not allowed to use salt to eat? That doesn't make sense. You could use salt for your clothing, but you can't use the salt when you're eating the actual korban to enjoy it. Where do we see that you're allowed to use salt? The kohanim are allowed to use salt to go ahead and salt the hides. Nimseis ata omer. B'shlosha mekomos hamelach nisuna. There's 3 places where they salt the thing. Belishkas hamelach v'agabe hakevesh uverosh sham mizbeach. Belishkas hamelach shesham mochin oros kachim. That's where they did malicha on the oros that the kohanim took home. And the Rishonim actually talk about why did they have to do the salting in the Beis Hamikdash if it was their personal ora? So the Gemara wanted to say, I think the Rishonim say that they wanted to make sure that the kohanim weren't losing anything. They wanted to make sure that they got their proper portion, so they salted it. They give them basically the final product while they're in the temple. Agabe hakevesh shesham mochem es haivarim. That's where they were molech the haivarim. B'shrosh sham mizbeach shesham mochin hakomets V'halavona, like we were talking about, v'hakatores, u'minchas kohanim, which is burned, u'minchas kohen Mashiach, the minchas chavitin, u'minchas nesachim, v'olas ha'of. But what do you see? You see that clearly they used the lishkas hamelach, they used the public salt in order to go ahead and to be molech the oros of the kachim of the kohanim. If they're going to use public salt to be molech the oros, the hides, clearly they were allowed to use public salt in order to be whatever, in order to make it tastier for them to eat their kachim. Therefore, says the Gemara, what must it be? Says the Gemara, elamayla korbanam. So it can't be that korbanam means only for the stuff that went on the mizbeach. La'achilas korbanam. Now we're bringing it down a level. For sure, they could use the public salt to be moleach their korban. For sure, they can even use the public salt. For sure, they can use the public salt to salt their hides. For sure, they can. And now the gezerah of Beis Din is that they can use the public salt for their eating of the kachim. What can they not use the public salt for? Umay la'achila, achila dechulin. So they can use the public salt when they're eating the kachim in the Beis HaMikdash, but if they're eating their French fries with it, they can't use the salt for the French fries. You have to keep the meat in your mouth and then eat the French fry and get whatever salt is left from the meat. Says the Gemara, chulin pshita. It's obvious that I can't use the public salt for chulin. Why? Because I can't bring the chulin into the Beis HaMikdash. My bo hasam. What is the chulin doing in the Beis HaMikdash? How can I eat my French fries in the Beis HaMikdash? Avagav de amar mar. Because Mar says, yochlu sheyochlu ima chulin u'truma kadesh tehena chelas ala saveya. Actually, Mar says that seemingly you can eat chulin. And it sounds like, again, there's a whole discussion we've shown about you eating it in the Beis HaMikdash or not. But Pashup Shah sounds like you're allowed to eat chulin and truma in the Beis HaMikdash with the korban. Why? Because we want to make sure that you eat the korban ala soveya, just like the DAF YOMI. You want to make sure that you eat the korban when you're full, so you have to fill yourself up. So how do you fill yourself up? You eat your own French fries, you eat your truma. Once you're full, you eat the korban. So it says in Gemara, "Afilu hachi melach dekachim lo yavinu lehu." So the chiddush is that you can only use the salt, even though you're seemingly eating it at the same meal. You're eating the French fries and the truma, and we want you to. We're telling you, eat the French fries and the truma in order to fill yourself up, so that when you eat the korban, it's only the dessert. With the korban for dessert, you can eat the melach. Says the Tanai Beis Din, with the korban for dessert, you can eat the melach that belongs to the public, but with your French fries and the truma, you cannot use. You can bring salt from Sobeys, but you can't bring the melach. You can't use the melach that belongs to the Jewish people.
The example you bring from Pesach is different from what we have there. That's different. Here you're talking about mamash chulin.
Right. Right. Again, I'm not sure that you're eating it in the mikdash or you're taking it out of the mikdash, but the point is the same, that you can't eat the salt with the chulin. This also makes sense to explain that when the Tanai was that you're allowed to use it with the food of Kodesh, you just can't use it with the chulin. That makes sense in Sfara as well. Why? Not just because it must be that they could eat it, because at the end of the day, if they could use it for their or, then of course they could use it for their eating. There's another reason why it makes sense. What's the other reason? The second reason is not just because it makes sense that they were able to use it for their eating, because if they could use it for their or, then they could use it for their eating. There's another svara. The other svara is that if you would tell me that the Tanai was that they can use it to be moleach their korbanos, but not to eat with their kachim, then what would come out? Then it would come out that if Beis Din did not make this Tanai, then the Kohanim would not be able to use public salt to salt their korbanos. And that's ridiculous. How could you even have that havamina? We know that the Yisrael, the Jewish people, can use public salt to salt their korbanos. Of course the Kohanim can use public salt to salt their korbanos. So there couldn't have even been that havamina. Hasha li Yisrael yavina l'kohalim lo yavina d'tanya. As we see, Yachol ha'omer harei alai mincha. You might think a person, this is where you're going to see, this long brace is where you're going to see that a Yisrael is allowed to use public salt in order to go ahead and salt his korban. Because if I say that I have to bring a mincha, yavi melach mitoch beiso, kederach shemevi levona mitoch beiso. We know that by the levona, for the korban mincha, you have to bring it from your house. You have to go to Sobeys and pick it up, right? Says the Gemara, and we had a whole discussion, really, by the comments, can you go to Sobeys after you already put it together? Fine. But that was a separate discussion earlier in the Masechta. But you have to bring the levona from Sobeys. So now the question is, melach you should bring from home as well. Vidinhu, you might have thought to bring it from home. Vidinhu, why? Nemar hevi mincha vehevi melach, v'nemar hevi mincha vehevi levona. We know it says that what? V'chol korban minchascha b'melach timlach. So you bring melach with a mincha, you bring levona with a mincha, ma levona mitoch bi, so af melach mitoch bi. So you might think that just like the levona has to come from your house, so too the melach has to come from your house, and you can't use the melach that belongs to the Jewish people, to the tzibor. This is by a regular Jew. Oh, kilcha l'derech zu, you can compare it to the other way. Nemar hevi mincha vevi melch, and nemar hevi mincha vevi eitzim. Not only does lavona come with the mincha, what else comes with the mincha? Eitzim. You have to burn it. Therefore, what? Ma eitzim mishel tzibor. Everybody agrees that the wood you don't bring from your house. The wood comes from the public wood. When you come to the Beis HaMikdash, included in the price of admission is the wood to be able to burn the mincha. Af melach mishel tzibor. Nira lemi dome. So what do we do? On one end, if we compare the melach to the lavona, you got to bring it from Sobeys or from home. If we compare it to eitzim, then you can use the public funds. This is for a regular Yisrael. Says the Gemara, "Don in davar hanoheg b'chol azvachim, davar hanoheg b'chol azvachim." You're going to compare it to eitzim, not to lavona, because just like eitzim is by all, melach is by all. Right? We said it's by all zvachim. It's not by dam. It's not by eitzim, but melach is by all korbanos. Eitzim are by all korbanos. Therefore, you compare the two. But you're not going to compare it to lavona because lavona is not by all zvachim. Says the Gemara, not so fast. So kilcha b'derech zu. Maybe you should compare it to lavona. Done in davar habayima b'kliyach midavar habayima b'kliyach v'ayochichu eitzim she'ena bayima b'kliyachad. Maybe you should actually compare and learn melach from lavona and not from eitzim, even though eitzim is brought on all korbanos and melach is brought on all korbanos. But we know that ultimately, that what? The melach and the lavona end up in one kli. Because the kamitza, which has melach, and the lavona are going to end up in one kli, and they're all going to be salted together, as opposed to eitzim are never going to end up in one kli with the melach. Says Gemara, Talmud lomar bris melach olam, hi ulahalanu omer me'es b'nei Yisrael bris olam. That's by the lechem apanim. It says bris. Malahala mishel tzibor, just like the lechem apanim, it's mishel tzibor, me'es b'nei Yisrael, afkan mishel tzibor. So even though there were two ways to learn it, and you could have compared melach to lavona, and then you have to bring it from Sobeys, or you can compare melach to eitzim, and therefore you get to use it. Talmud lomar from the pasuk, that at the end of the day, Yisrael can use, a regular person from Yisrael who brings a korban mincha to the Beis HaMikdash, uses the salt mishel tzibor. So you just proved to me that a Yisrael uses a salt mishel tzibor. So you're going to even have the audacity to suggest that a Kohen who brings a korban is not going to be able to use the salt mishel tzibor? That's impossible to suggest. Therefore, it must be that when they made the Tanai, when they made this declaration based in, it couldn't have been that Kohanim are allowed to use the salt mishel tzibor. That's a given. The declaration was that not only can they use it when they're preparing their minchas, they're allowed to use it even when they're eating their korbanos that they got from the Jewish people. The only thing that they can't use it for is when they're eating their French fries as well. Says the Gemara, Amar le Rav Mordechai le Rav Ashi, Hachi Kamar Rav Shisha Breda Rav Idi, Lo Nitzrucha Elo le Ben Buchri. We'll end with this. This whole discussion that Beis Din needed to make a Tanai, that the Kohanim can use the Tzibor's melach when eating their kachim, that was only according to Ben Buchan. I just want to say it outside so that we don't get confused. There's a machlokas whether the Kohanim had to contribute a half a shekel. A half a shekel was used to buy all of the different things in the Beis HaMikdash. If the Kohanim contributed half a shekel, then there's nothing to talk about. Then there's no havamina that the Kohanim should not be able to use the public melach to be able to do whatever they want. Maybe not for chulin, for a separate reason, because it's kachim for chulin, but there should be no reason for Beis Din to make a tanai that Kohanim can use the public melach to eat their korban that's kadosh that they got from the Jewish people because they gave half a shekel. This whole discussion is only within Ben Buchri, who, as we'll see in a second, clearly says that the Kohanim do not have to. They can, as we'll see, but they don't have to. They're not required to contribute half a shekel. If they're not required to contribute half a shekel, they're not partners, quote unquote, in the melach of the Jewish people. If they're not partners, then one would think that they don't get melach from the Jewish people. Therefore, we need this limud, we need this tanai from Beis Din to say that even though they're not, quote unquote, partners, they're obviously still very much partners, and they're allowed to go ahead and use the melach as long as it's used for kachim. That's the rest of this Gemara here. But it's only within Ben Buchri who says that Kohanim do not contribute. If they contribute, then we don't have to have this whole discussion. There's nothing to talk about, and they are allowed to go. Let's see what the Gemara says. Le Ben Buchri ditnan. Amar Rav Yehuda. Hey Ben Buchri biyavne. Kol kohen sheshokel eino chote. Any kohen who shokel is not chote. That means that he brings his shekel to the lishka in Adar. He's eino chote. Well, what does that mean? He's eino chote. That means lichatchila, as Rashi says. Read this Rashi. Midekamar eino chote miklal de lichatchila lo mechayev. Lechatchila is not chayev. What does it mean eino chote? Why is it eino chote? Well, what's the problem if you don't have to bring? If you have to bring to the Beis HaMikdash and you bring it, you're good to go. What happens if you bring it and you don't have to bring it? What are you doing? You're bringing chulin into the Beis Hamikdash. You can only bring in the money if the money needs to be used for the Beis Hamikdash. If it doesn't have to be used for the Beis Hamikdash, then you're bringing chulin. So the Gemara says that a Kohen, according to Ben Bukhri, a Kohen who's shokel eino chote, he doesn't have to bring. Therefore, you might have thought that what? You might have thought that if he brings, he's going to be chote. Comes along Ben Bukhri and says he's not chote because he could still give if he wants. But what does that clearly show? That lecharchila, he doesn't have to give. Why? Taimon befarish b'mesechet shkalim, says Rashi. Dichsiv kol ha'over al ha'pekudim. Anybody who's counted. V'sheva levi lo nifgad. Only people that are counted need to give a shekel. That's how they counted them, half a shekel. V'yaf agav te'ikol l'meimar hamasei chulin lazara. And even though you could say that since they're not chayiv to bring it, if they bring the money, the half shekel, it's like bringing chulin to the azara. Afilu hachi eino chote. His chiddush is that they're not chote, as we'll see in a second. Even though they're not chayiv. But clearly, again, what we need for our purposes is that Ben Bukhri says that a Kohen is not chayiv to bring the half shekel. Therefore, we would say that a Kohen is not part of the Tzibor's melach. Therefore, we need Beis Din to come along and make a t'nai that nevertheless they're allowed to use the melach. Says in Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the other side, lo, ki, ela kol kohen she'eno shokel chote. If he doesn't give, he is chote for a different reason. The chote over there, within Ben Bukhri, was chote of bringing chulin lazara. The chote here is not the same chote. The chote here is that he's doing a sin by not actually contributing to the half shekel. Ela sho'akonim dorshin mikra zel atzman. Well, first of all, why would they be included? We just said kol ha'over al ha'pekudim, Rashi. Bishkalim mefarish time according to this reason, dichsiv, because it says zeh yidnu. Sounds a little bit wild. Zeh begematria shnei masar. All 12 tribes need to give. Shnei masar shvatim, hainu shevi levi. V'chol ha'over. What does it mean v'chol ha'over? It sounds like anybody who's counted. No, it doesn't mean anybody who's counted. Mefarish hasam kol ha'over b'yamsuf. Anybody who went over the yamsuf, that's not pashup shah for sure. Kol ha'over al ha'pekudim. But anybody who went over the yamsuf has to give. That includes Kohen. But now, just to conclude, so now the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai,
there were no Kohanim that over the Yom Suf.
there were no what?
There were no Kohanim
Yeah,
who were over the Yom Suf,
The Levium.
if you want to be technical.
The Levium, no?
The tribe of
This
Levi.
is not, shot here is that if the Kohanim are
No,
counted,
Right.
they were over because they went the Yom Suf, there were no Kohanim.
Interesting. Okay. So you're saying Sheva Levi. Interesting. So the Gemara says that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the Kohanim are dorshin mikra zele atzman. That means really Kohanim are chayav. So why do Kohanim not bring the half shekel if they're really chayav? Because they make a argument that's flawed. What's their flawed argument, says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, which seemingly you, Ben Bukhri, are making as well. What's their flawed argument? We know the pasuk says, V'chol minchas kohen kol tiyeh lo tochel, that when a kohen brings a mincha, it gets totally burnt. Hoel va'omer shtei lechem v'lechem apanim shalanu hi heich ne'achal. Listen to what the Kohanim say. The Kohanim make the following argument, which the Gemara says, which Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said is flawed. But what's their argument? Their argument is that there are two givens. Given number one is that any mincha that we bring gets totally burnt. Right? Given number two is that there are certain minchas, i.e. the shtei lechem and the lechem apanim and the omer that get eaten. Say the Kohanim, I don't understand. I have a proof for you. It can't be that we're required to give a half a shekel. Because if we were required to bring a half a shekel, that means that we would become partners, not only in the salt, we would become partners in these korban minchas as well. What would happen if we became partners in the korban minchas as well? Look, it says that our minchas need to be totally burnt. How can God say that we have to be partners in a mincha that's totally then burnt, but he just said also that these minchas are eaten? What was the flawed part of that argument? The flawed part of that argument, says the Gemara in Shkalim, is that only a minchas yachid, only a personal mincha of a Kohen is burnt. A mincha tzibor of the Kohen is not burnt. But that was their flawed argument, said Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, to try to get out of the half shekel. But at the end of the day, they need to bring a half shekel. Says the Gemara, Ula ben Bukhri. So now we said, according to Ben Bukhri, it comes out that Ben Bukhri says the Kohanim don't have to give a half shekel. Kohanim don't have to give a half shekel. Really, they're not partners. If they're not partners, therefore you think that they can use the melach. Comes along Beis Din and makes it t'nai, they're allowed to use the melach for their kachim. Says the Gemara, Ula ben Bukhri, which is just derech agav, a digression. This was our question. If in fact they're not chayiv, how can Ben Bukhri say that they're allowed to bring and allowed to contribute? It's bringing chulin lazara. Says the Gemara, no. If they're wholeheartedly giving it over to the tzibor, it's not like bringing chulin in the azara. Finally, salka daita chamina. So like we said, salka daita chamina, kizachi l'hu rachmana. Why did we need the rabbanan? Why do we need chazal? Why do we need Beis Din to make this gzeira that the Kohanim can partake within Ben Bukhri? Salka daita chamina what? Kizachi l'hu rachmana li Yisrael de islahu lishka. You might think that when they said that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said you can use the melach for your korbanos. That's dafka for people that have a piece of the lishka, i.e., they have a piece of the chamber after they gave the half shekel. Who is that? That's the Yisrael. Lekohanim deleslu lishka lo zachilu rachmana. But you might think that the Kohanim are not giving the half shekel. According to Ben Buchra, they don't have a piece in the lishka because, again, after all, they weren't contributing. Kamash malan. Therefore, the chiddush is, and what we learn is that the Beis Din says that even though they're not giving, they're still very much a part of the tzibor, and therefore, again, at the end of the day, the Kohanim are allowed to use the melech of the tzibor to eat their kachim with, and the only thing that they can't use is to eat it with their French fries. Have a wonderful Shabbos.